All right. Welcome to the business of allied health. We have a very special guest, Jordan Gauder. He's the founder and CEO of Gen Physio, but they're not just about physio. I think they
That's
do
right.
in-home allied health services throughout the nation, particularly in Queensland. Their goal is to hit 1 million services in 2025 and
We
35,
need 10 years at
no,
least
10
of
years.
that ambitious goal.
No worries. And yeah, I learned about him through Shane, one of our mutual friends who are both Sri Lankans that are
Yes.
in business and physio. And I found his story that he posted recently really intriguing. I think he did a face-to-face workshop or something like that on that. So hopefully we can pick his brains in this. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you for having me, Barry, and excited to be on the podcast and hopefully sharing some gold nuggets that would help others avoid the mistakes and the challenges that I've been through and also give them an inspiring story.
Fantastic. All right. Tell us about your story. How did you decide to become a physio and what happened, including your ups and downs in a concise way?
Yeah, look, it all comes back to year 10 at high school, figuring out what career we're going to undertake. And I just looked at myself and went, look, I love my sports. I'm pretty hands on, physically fit. And I thought, what best career could I go into that sort of marries all that together? And physiotherapy came up as a pretty hot career and job at that time. This is, we're going back to probably 2005. And we had work experience opportunities and decided to do a couple of private practice work experience days and one in hydrotherapy as well. So 3 in total, and just absolutely loved it. I couldn't, as a 15-year-old, I couldn't tell you what was going on in the clinic and how the head physio at the time, which was down at Mermaid Beach here on the Gold Coast, was working with his clients. But all I knew was that he was helping people. They regarded him as a trusted professional and they got to talk about sports. And I think there was even a TV on in the corner with sports going on in it. And so that's really where I fell in love with the idea about being a physiotherapist. And then I remember he brought out a book. And this is one of my private practice work placements that I had. And he threw down, it must have been a physiology or anatomy book. It must have been 300 pages long. And I freaked out. And he just said, don't worry, you've got 4 years at uni to learn this. And realized I'm going to have to up my grades and put in the work if I'm going to want to go down this career. So really from year 10, that's all I wanted to be, was a physiotherapist.
Very cool. So when did you start Gen Physio? Was it out of a frustration in the industry or did it just fall in your lap?
I'd like to say it was all planned, but absolutely wasn't. It was completely fell on my lap. And I was very lucky enough throughout my placements at Bond University, where I did the Doctor of Physiotherapy program, getting an opportunity to be in aged care in a residential aged care facility. And then also for one of my placements, another one was with the TCP, as in transitional care program through Queensland Health. So it was a community allied health placement. Got exposure to home visits, how it's done on the public side, which I felt was extremely inefficient at that time, but also privately through residential aged care. And I just absolutely love the community aged care aspect and completely pivoted from wanting to go down the sports musculoskeletal route as a physio into aged care and community, and being pretty close with my family and my grandma who's now passed away. I just saw clients like my grandma's had falls and had fractures, and the amount of work that she needed to improve her physical mobility and keep at home independent for so many years. Physios was such a big part. So I just loved the community aspect. And my first job was in residential aged care. And about a little over a year in, I got asked by the doctors that would visit, do you do home visits? Is it something that you guys could help with? I've got clients who are DVA, and also I can send Medicare referrals. I've got a lot of clients that are elderly clients, particularly that need in-home sessions. And I said, look, unfortunately not. I'm full-time only contracted to this facility, part of a national company at that time, based in Sydney, but I was working here on the Gold Coast, and really just had a epiphany. There's a gap in the market here that clients couldn't really get in-home help, in-home physio. And what they were having to do, or the families were and the doctors were calling local clinics and basically begging the physio or principal physio to let one of their clinicians leave the clinic and go treat their clients at home that found it difficult to get to a clinic. And that moment it was born where there's an opportunity on a market here for in-home physio services here on the Gold Coast. And there wasn't many providers at the time. That's all that they offered, mobile only. And I felt that the physio clinics that did offer home visit services, they were inefficient and they were charging through the roof. And they had to, because it took their clinician 20, 30 minutes to get to the client home, 20, 30 minutes or 30 minutes to run the session and 30 minutes back. So it was a 90-minute minimum. And so they could have seen 3 clients for $100 an hour, $100 a consult at that time. So they had to bill that rate for a home visit. And I
Mm.
felt that if I could go only mobile and schedule my clients close together, I could offer a much more competitive rate and be a specialist in this field. And if I can be smart logistically with how I book my clients in over the Gold Coast and plan it well, I could earn a much higher hourly rate, but still charge a lot less with minimal overheads. And really that was all through early 2015. And hence Gen Physio was born a little over 11 years ago now, with myself as a passionate young physio, 18 months out, and wanting to explore the home visit world in allied health and physio that really didn't exist, and start a private sole trader business. And that's how it all began.
Sounds great. You grew Gen Physio from 500K to 2 million very quickly. What did that growth expose that revenue alone was hiding?
Yeah, so not long after that, being one of the only mobile providers that specialized at in-home visits, we got a lot of traction quite early and a lot of interest, and that attracted more DVA referrals from doctors, and then also attracted home care package work, working with agencies or aged care organizations that had a lot of clients that needed in-home physio. So that took about close to a year afterwards, where it really started to take off in 2016, and we started to grow a team. And it sounds like a lot going from 500 in revenue to 2 million, I guess it is, but we only had a team of around 10 plus clinicians, and it very much comes up very quickly. And then all other costs like payroll, tax, and everything else started to creep up, and had to learn the lessons about being a business owner. When you're talking about challenges at that 2 mil mark, the biggest challenge was understanding margins, that to get work and volume of referrals, we were competitive on pricing, and we were very busy. And I guess one of the biggest lessons I learned is that being really busy and having more referrals than you know what to do with doesn't necessarily mean you're going to walk home with a profit margin or anything in the bank account at the end of the year. Once you pay all your super and your PAYG and your training costs and your room hire fees and your offices and your admin team and your clinicians, there really isn't much left. And if you're not pricing appropriately, regardless of revenue. So that was a really hard lesson that I've learned a couple times over the 11 years, but that was one of the first lessons. We were very busy. We were needing more admin and overheads support in terms of support staff and better technology. And that came with a higher cost. And we soon realized that we needed to be charging accordingly to maintain the quality of value of services that we provide and the support to our clinicians and clients.
Interesting. So when was that darkest, lowest moment for you? I think there
This
was
is
one.
a funny and sad story at the
Right.
same time. We grew quite quickly, and that was also due to an expansion into Brisbane as well. Really back, I'm thinking 2018, I think we launched in late 2017 to 2018, launched in Brisbane. We only had a team of physios, EPs, and I think we had one occupational therapist. So we were starting to expand disciplines, but also geographically. And looking at the revenue wise, and this is 8 years ago, as somebody in their mid to late 20s, I thought, hey, this is great. I've created a business out of nowhere, and we're doing more revenue than most allied health businesses would see annually in their lifetime. I think now $1 million revenue now in a clinic is kind of now the norm, but it certainly wasn't pre-COVID. And so with ego and I guess lack of deeper understanding of business and having no formal qualifications, it all came together and I went, here's a good idea. Let's go out and buy a really expensive car. So I went out and bought a custom special order Range Rover. And this was probably one of the posts I shared online. When 28 years old, it arrived 6 months later. Let's say they built it and shipped it over from the UK. And it was a pretty special time. It was a bit of a trophy that, hey, I'm in my car a lot, and being in a very expensive Range Rover and a home visit service is probably not sending the right message. But again, ego and lack of knowledge of business, and it all came together. And actually, the week before the car arrived, I had Bruce Linton, which is the Range Rover dealership on the Gold Coast, call up and said, your car's here. This is very exciting. It's all custom built the way you wanted it, and this, that, and the other. And by the way, we need 50,000 deposit for you to pick it up as well. And I looked at, like any inexperienced business owner, you look at the company and go, I think I've got just about 50 grand, and that's all my operational cash flow, and thinking it's my money, right? So I'm thinking like a sole trader, not a real business owner. And then said, no worries, I got 50 grand, let's do it. So I'm really excited. And then I got a call from my accountant or bookkeeper at the time and said, by the way, are you paying super for your staff? And I said, no, that's what you've been doing, right? And then she goes, no, I thought you were doing it. And I went, hang on a minute. So what are you trying to say? I saw it on the pay slips, right? It says super on the pay slips. And they said, well, yeah, that's how our payroll system works. However, if you're not physically paying it every quarter, you're in breach of making those obligations. And that was a rude shock. And they said, now with penalties and fees, and then I think I had to make up the lost interest over that 12 months, which was 10%. I think the average growth was 6 or 8%, but I had to pay 10%. So I turned out to be the hedge fund or the super company. So I paid their growth that they missed out on, which is fair enough. And it was $55,000 was the bill. So I remember I was in a pretty bad way. I was having a big party on my 28th that weekend, and I had to, I was going to bin the Range Rover and go, this is my lesson. And then I told everyone about it, and everyone's asking me how it was, and I felt really embarrassed. And I said, no, I've got to figure out a way to make it right with my team's super obligations and let them know that's an honest mistake and make that payment. It's rightfully theirs, but also I want to get the Range Rover and commit to that. In hindsight, I probably should have let it go, but I didn't want to disappoint the dealer because it was quite custom made and top of the range, and they probably would have sold it in a week, but they made me feel bad too, and I don't want to let them down as well. So I called what you do when you hit your straps, call mum, who's quite a successful business owner in her own right, and had to spot me the difference in money that I could. So I paid the super, and then I paid the car off. And that was one of the low points that I've had, that you just don't know what you don't know. And whilst I made everything right, I was driving around on the Gold Coast with the latest Range Rover, basically broken, at least in the bank account sense. That was, I learned a hard lesson on cash flow, what the business's money is theirs versus what's yours, and learning how to split that, and had to work very hard to get that back, but it absolutely came back.
Right. That's a very unique and genuine story there.
28, I'm 35 now, 36 now.
35.
So that was
Nice.
28. That was 20. I was
Right.
28. So I'm 36 now. I'm bringing back some big memories, but a lot of, that was one of my biggest, not my only, but one of my biggest hard lessons early in the journey.
Yeah. Excellent. What financial numbers do you think every allied health owner should know before they even think about scaling their business like yours?
Yeah, look, one number that is so critical that we've focused on was gross profit margin. So that's just knowing essentially your costs, the clinician salary cost, super, all the costs involved to deliver the service, and then what's your margin post that. And that even took a little bit longer period after that moment where we started to grow further, that we realized that top line revenue, or just bottom line, is important, but the most important is the gross profit line. And that was back to the being really busy and scaling in terms of revenue, but cost and the margins were decreasing. As you grow, you need more managers, more support, more technology. And so our gross profit margins weren't scaling appropriately with size. And something that we watch very carefully here and always do to make sure that we can remunerate our clinicians and our staff appropriately and offer a good service, but also that we charge appropriately, and making sure that we're also productive and making sure that we don't overhire where we don't need to, and ensure that everyone is meeting a certain productivity level to control our GP margin. So gross profit margins, I feel, is certainly past that $1 million revenue mark is really critical. In fact, I would focus on how to increase that more than revenue, because you do that, that will provide the story for your bottom line.
Interesting. What changed in you when the business required you to stop thinking like a business owner, like a physio owner, clinic owner, and start acting like a CEO?
Yeah, look, that's
What needed to change?
that's a kind of big pivotal moment for any allied health business owner who's a clinician first, is that you have to make that transition from, am I to be the best business leader and to have a great business where your people can be supported, they have career progression, you offer great services in the community, you have great referral partnerships. You have to be a CEO and have to let go of the physio, I guess, mindset. And that's hard because the skills and the traits of being a physio is what got you to the position of a successful and growing business. But to remain successful and to be able to provide more positive impacts in the community, you have to have a mindset shift. The business will only do as well as the founder and the leadership team. And so it came to 2020 where I found that I needed to hand over all my clients. I was probably only clinically treating 2 half days a week, and it was a progression down. But it got to a point where I was being reactive, and as I was treating clients and then going back to work on my business, I'm just putting out fires that could have been prevented if I did the time, I put the work in prior and built the right foundations and processes and systems. And so I found that I got to a point where I was going around in circles and I couldn't actually offer a better experience to our team and to my clients. And even got to a point where I was treating my most loyal and clients that I had great relationships with and I got great results with, but I was thinking about business challenges and things I needed to do for the business, then focusing on my client. And that really got to a point where I was quite disheartened and disappointed that if I'm not in the room 100% focusing on my client, I'm not giving them the best service that they deserve. And while they absolutely wanted me and no one else, at least down to the last handful that I was working with, I had to make that hard call to hand over those clients to my team who would do a better job than me because they could be fully present. They could focus on their clients and I could let go of that. So that took probably way too long. And we were probably well into the 3-4 million plus revenue range and growing quite rapidly before I decided to fully let go. And I should have done that a lot sooner and transitioned to being a better CEO. And that's probably we started in 2015, 2019, 2020 is when I really started to make that transition and started to change my learnings to how can I be a better business leader? How can I understand financials? It's not good enough to say I'm a physio. I'm not good with my numbers. I don't like numbers too bad. If you want to offer create an amazing business that has so much value and can be beyond just average, we never want to be average. I had to come down to who do I want to be and who do I need to learn from and what does that look like? And my whole PD for myself completely changed into being a business leader. And
Fantastic.
that's, allowed me to unlock that next stage in growth.
So what's in store for Jordan for the next 5 years?
Oh,
Second
funny
Range
you
Rover?
say that. No, absolutely not. Funny enough, we hit another challenging point, and certainly not funny at the time, but funny enough when you look back and go, how did this happen again? Where 5 years later, we hit a challenging point where we grew too rapidly and we really grew off the back of NDIS and all was really good and things were growing. But with the lack of the pricing indexation from the NDIS year on year, that started to bring problems to our margins and how we operate, something that we monitored so closely, but it was chasing revenue growth and services growth and bringing on more great clinicians, but you still need to have the business fundamentals. So I sold the Range Rover in 5 years and punished myself and when I say punish myself, the team all drive Toyota Corollas and that's the company car. I went and drove a company car and my team are driving these cars. They're fantastic cars. Got myself a hybrid Toyota Corolla and went from a Range Rover to Corolla and was in that for at least a year before I realized I need to be a better business leader. I need to own that I don't deserve this car until I can get the business right for my people and for our clients and really shape it. And then I've upgraded to a nice little 2 Series BMW. You've got every business owner with the risks and things, you've got a reward, but it's nowhere near the cost of the Range Rover, and that was 6, 7 years later.
M2?
Getting a wife wouldn't let me. I did.
Competition? No.
I was going to get the M2.
Yeah.
Funny you say that. But my wife said, unless you're a dad of 3 kids now,
You're responsible.
this is irresponsible to get a turbocharged 2-door sports car. And she was right. And I got a 4-door. I got the one below that still can have a bit of fun driving, but also is more responsible. And she's right. The office is only 3 minutes from where my home is. I need to be reasonable. And that's where I go. Where do I invest? If I've got my time needs to go to the business and to my family, that's critical. But then also I value more experiences now, and that's holidays and time with family and friends. And yeah, the fancy cars couldn't care less. I probably even looked at an e-bike at one stage, but yeah, no, I've got a lovely car by all means, but definitely no more luxury cars. And yeah,
Awesome. So how do
story.
people I love it. So how do people reach out to you, Jordan, if they want? I think you told me from our previous meeting that you offer executive coaching services or
No, nothing
nothing
at
yet.
this
No.
stage. Potentially in the future. For me, my focus is still on Gen Physio, still on making sure that I can be the best leader that this business be and need, and setting it up for success and working. And then I've got my family. I've got 3 kids under 5. So potential horizon in the future. For me, it's anyone who's wanting to reach out for a chat and get support or ask me questions. I'm more than happy. I've got that. I want to be able to help other business owners regardless of whether they're competitors or in our space. I don't mind. It's about there's plenty of work out there, and I just want to make sure that others don't have the same mistakes that or challenges that I've had, but also those challenges have helped me to be the better leader that I am today. So LinkedIn would be the easiest, just typing in my name in Google, going to LinkedIn and reaching out, and if there's any I guess questions or support I can provide, I'm more than happy to share my experiences, and maybe that will help them as well.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks for offering that. Yeah, it's been really authentic. I love that. There's no hiding. It didn't sound corporate.
No,
Real.
this is not. I think founder physio or clinician founder-led 8-figure businesses are few and far between. And yes, I have to be better as a corporate leader and understand the responsibilities and needs of a CEO. And that's where I spent a lot of my time, my energy, but I don't forget my humble beginnings. I was a physio, just like my team, just like a lot of smaller businesses out there that wanted to grow a team. I'm fortunate enough, I've got many good leaders, and I've got a management team that support a lot of the day-to-day, and I focus more on strategy and direction. You asked about what's in store for me for the next 5 years. I don't focus on 5 years too much. I just focus on 12 months because the world's changing so rapidly, especially with AI and the changes that the NDIA can make at a drop of a hat, drop of a coin, or whatever the saying is. I just like to think 12 months ahead. And for me, it's just continuing to grow and be a better leader for Gen Physio. And I've got some fitness goals, running a 10K next week at the GC Marathon, and strength goals with the gym, and it's time with family. Nothing's super huge, but it's focused day in, day out. And 12 months is all I look at. Where am I going to be? Where's the business going to be? And recalculate that as you go.
All right. Thanks, Jordan. It's been a pleasure to have you. And
Thank you for having me.
hopefully the audience will get some golden nuggets from that Thanks, mate.
Absolutely. And if not an inspiration, then regardless of what challenges you go through, I believe in being transparent. The ego, there is no room in leadership for egos. And whilst I had a quite a big one in the early days, and that was a big part of the early days and success, right? You got to have a good combination of ego with confidence. But there is a point in time where what are we all trying to do here? At the end of the day, we want to help more people in the community and offer a great careers for our support team and our clinicians and be proud of a great business. And that's what gets me going. And if I can continue to grow and develop, then happy days. So fully transparent. It's just a competitor or not. You won't get many on our level sharing because they're either still in the thick of it or they've potentially got an ego and they don't want to share. But that's not with me.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you very much, Barry. Thanks for having me.